videos on their YouTube channel worldwide, and they just want to be known for those group or that group that can just sing anytime, anyone, anywhere for anyone. All right, well, that was such a warm and touching time, and we have listeners wanting to hear more of your songs. But like you said, social media, Instagram, right? We'll follow you on your social media platform, and we'll have to let you go there. Thank you so much for coming in today. It was such a beautiful time with you. Thank you so much. 너무 감사합니다.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, listeners, it's time to say goodbye. Unfortunately, we'll have to wrap up the show there. That was the amazing a cappella group Maytree, and please do join us again tomorrow for more culture to crunch on. This has been your DJ Jihee, and I'll be back at 11 a.m. tomorrow for more. All right, here's our last song. It's 이 밤의 끝을 잡고, another song by Maytree. It's called Holding the End of This Night. Thank you and bye. Keep crunching.
너의 입술이 너의 하얀 어깨를 감싸며 그렇게 우리 이 밤의 끝을 잡고 사랑했지만 마지막 입맞춤이 아쉬움에 떨려도 빈손으로 내게 세상이 준 선물은 너란 걸 알기에 참아야겠지 내 맘 아프지 않게 그 누구보다 더 행복하게 살아야 해 모든 걸 잊고 이 밤의 끝을 잡고 있는 나의 사랑이 더 이상 초라하지 않게 나를 위해 울진 마는 괜찮아 마지막 입맞춤이 아쉬움에 떨려도 빈손으로 내게 세상이 준 선물은 너란 걸 알기에 참아야겠지 내 맘 아프지 않게 그 누구보다 더 행복하게 살아야 해 모든 걸 잊고 이 밤의 끝을 잡고 있는 나의 사랑이 더 이상 초라하지 않게 나를 위해 울진 마는 괜찮아
Welcome to APEC.
여기 2025 차 좀 빼주세요. 2025.
손 크다. 손 크네. 태권도 원! 하! 하! 아직까지는 쉽네. 잠깐만. 너 안 쉬워. 힘드는데?
Lair of the Peak.
South Korea plans to send a joint governmental response team to Cambodia today, following the recent death of a Korean college student who was tortured by an organized crime gang. Around 80 more Koreans in Cambodia remain missing, or their safety has yet to be confirmed. Trade tensions between the United States and China are flaring up again, as Trump announced that his administration is considering cutting cooking oil-related business ties with China as part of potential retaliation for Beijing's refusal to buy American soybeans. The International Monetary Fund raised its growth outlook for South Korea and the global economy, but still warned of uncertainties from tariff risks and rising tensions between Washington and Beijing. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. We begin today with South Korea's efforts to tackle crimes targeting Koreans in Cambodia. President Lee Jae-myung has now called for tighter travel restrictions and swift coordination with the local authorities there. And the country plans to send a joint governmental response team to Cambodia today. Our top office correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
With growing calls to tackle a recent crime surge in Cambodia targeting Koreans, President Lee Jae-myung began the weekly cabinet meeting by urging the prompt return of kidnapped Koreans who had been caught up in job scams.
국민의 생명과 안전을 지키는 것이 정부의 가장 큰 책임입니다. 지금은 다른 무엇보다 피해자들을 보호하고 또 사건 연루자들을 국내로 신속하게 송환해야 됩니다.
He called for the need to speed up establishing a coordination system with the Cambodian authorities, strengthening travel restrictions for areas of concern, and securing a sufficient budget for consular services.
가용 자원을 총동원해서 신속하게, 정확하게, 확실하게 대응해 주시기 바랍니다.
This follows an increase in reported kidnappings of Koreans by criminal rings in Cambodia through job scams, often related to voice phishing, and the recent torture death of a Korean college student by a local organized crime gang.
The second vice foreign minister will lead a joint governmental response team and will be sent to Cambodia on the 15th. Also, an international cooperative body will be launched to carry out a joint police operation on the kidnapping and confinement of our people.
On the economy, President Lee urged that all hands should be on deck in the face of intensifying global trade conflict, stressing the need for gaining a technological edge and diversifying export markets. He also called for strict measures to straighten out distortions in the domestic real estate market caused by disinformation. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The Lee Jae-myung administration has launched the third phase of its plan to stabilize the overheating housing market, focusing on Seoul and surrounding regions. From Thursday, all 25 Seoul districts and 12 regions of Gyeonggi-do province will face stricter regulations. Now, those include new loan-to-value ratio rules, which will be lower from the current 70% to 40%, meaning home buyers must provide at least 60% of the purchase price in cash. Also, the mortgage limit will be capped at 400 million Korean won, or around $280,000 US, for homes valued at between 1.5 and 2.5 billion Korean won. The cap will be fixed at 200 million won for those above 2.5 billion Korean won. And over in the United States, trade tensions between Washington and Beijing continues, as President Donald Trump said his administration is considering cutting cooking oil-related trade ties with China. Now, the announcement is part of Washington's retaliation for Beijing's refusal to buy American soybeans. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
Tensions between the United States and China are flaring up again, this time over soybeans and cooking oil. U.S. President Donald Trump announced Tuesday that his administration is considering cutting cooking oil-related business ties with China as part of potential retaliation for Beijing's refusal to buy American soybeans. He described China's move as an economically hostile act and indicated that the U.S. could easily produce cooking oil domestically, making imports unnecessary. China has long been the biggest buyer of U.S. soybeans, purchasing around 27 million metric tons, worth nearly $12.8 billion in 2024. But since May, Beijing has not bought a single soybean from the United States, marking a sharp break that comes amid a broader trade standoff. Later at the White House, Trump addressed the U.S.-China relationship more broadly. He said Washington must be cautious in its dealings with Beijing, noting that while the relationship with Chinese leadership remains stable overall, China has a tendency to push boundaries, and the U.S. will not allow itself to be taken advantage of. Meanwhile, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer said the timing of the additional 100% tariffs on Chinese exports, set to take effect by November 1st or earlier, will ultimately depend on Beijing's actions. He explained that officials from both sides met for staff-level talks in Washington this week, and that there's still a possibility of working through disagreements, particularly over China's restrictions on critical minerals. Greer emphasized that the U.S. will not accept a system where China tries to control global high-tech supply chains. With soybeans, cooking oil, and critical minerals all on the table, both Washington and Beijing are under pressure to find a way to ease tensions before the next round of tariffs hits next month. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And amid rising trade tensions, China has announced sanctions targeting 5 U.S. subsidiaries of South Korean shipbuilder Hanwha Ocean, accusing them of cooperating with American efforts to impose punitive measures on Chinese vessels. The move bans Chinese organizations and individuals from conducting business with the subsidiaries and comes amid rising tensions in global shipping and shipbuilding, including new port fees imposed by both the United States and China. In response, South Korea's presidential office said on Tuesday that it's communicating and responding through Korea-China trade channels, and that the immediate impact appears limited, while the effect on U.S.-Korea shipbuilding cooperation will be assessed comprehensively. And high-level officials from South Korea are heading to the United States for follow-up discussions on tariff negotiations. Finance Minister Koo departed for Washington on Wednesday to attend the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors meetings, and also coordinated separate meetings with U.S. Treasury Secretary Gov't Bessent. Speaking to reporters at Incheon Airport, Koo said he expects to meet with Bessent several times during his visit and that he will explain Korea's situation clearly. Presidential Chief of Policy Kim Yong-bum is also set to leave for Washington on Thursday to meet with his U.S. officials for tariff talks. The International Monetary Fund has raised South Korea's growth outlook, but warns that escalating tariff tensions and global uncertainties could slow the recovery. Our Moon-hyeon has the details.
The International Monetary Fund has raised its forecast for South Korea's economic growth amid pressure on Seoul to wrap up trade negotiations in Washington. In its latest economic outlook, the IMF now expects the economy to grow by 0.9% in 2025, 0.1 percentage points higher than its July projection. This is in line with forecasts from domestic institutions such as the Bank of Korea, but lower than that of the OECD's. South Korea's forecast for 2026 was maintained at 1.8%, with the country's finance ministry stating that this projection is interpreted to mean that economic growth will return to its normal trajectory next year. The IMF, however, warns that escalating tariff conflicts could hurt South Korea's export-driven sectors, particularly automobiles, and weigh on overall growth if trade tensions intensify again. Globally, the IMF raised its growth outlook to 3.2% for this year, up 0.2 percentage points from July, citing stronger than expected resilience in major economies. The U.S. economy is now projected to grow by 2% this year and 2.1% next year, while China's growth is expected to slow from 4.8% to 4.2%. The financial institution said the impact of U.S. tariff policies was smaller than initially feared, thanks to preemptive supply chain adjustments and new trade arrangements. But it cautioned that rising tensions between Washington and Beijing could once again weigh heavily on global growth.
This is more of a downside risk in a sense. This is what we have to think about what could happen if negative trade measures were implemented, if some restrictions on exports of critical materials were implemented. It illustrates the potential for the global economy to take a turn for the worse if trade tensions become more elevated.
It also pointed to the ongoing AI investment boom as a potential source of instability, warning that if the bubble bursts, it could echo the shock of the internet stock bubble bust of the early 2000s. Moon-hyeon, Arirang News.
A year after Kang's historic Nobel Prize in Literature, the world's curiosity for Korean stories has only grown. But beyond the words on the page, it's the art of translation that has carried those stories across borders. Our Park Hyubin has more.
It's been a year since Korean author Kang became the first South Korean to be awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. Since then, with K-pop, K-dramas, and K-films capturing audiences worldwide, Korean literature has emerged as another key pillar of the K-culture wave, and at the heart of it all is translation.
Translation is absolutely vital. Korean is not globally common language, so for our literature to reach international readers, translation is the most important bridge.
Kwak says the bridge is now being built by a new generation, native language translators from around the world drawn by their passion for Korean culture.
Since 2008, our institute has been running a translation academy to train translators who can faithfully and fluently convey Korean literature. Each year, about 120 students from 7 language regions take part in the program. Many of them are so fluent in Korean that you can hardly tell whether they are native speakers or not.
So do you have any specific plans or any goals in terms of making the Korean literature make more popular in the global market?
We want to strengthen the translator's entire career path from newcomers learning under senior mentors to professionals joining dedicated residencies that allow them to focus fully on translation.
As Korean books gain traction abroad, Kwok notes that global readers are embracing an ever wider range of stories, from healing-themed fiction to socially charged novels.
Our next goal is to broaden that reach, not only sharing popular titles, but also introducing literary works of high quality and artistic depth that haven't yet been discovered overseas.
For Kang and other writers, translation has been the key to voice, and as more translators bridge languages and cultures, the world of Korean literature continues to expand beyond borders. Park Hyobin, Arirang News.
And shifting gears to sports, the South Korean men's national football team bounced back from a heavy defeat to Brazil with a 2-0 win over Paraguay in a friendly in Seoul on Tuesday. In the match at the Seoul World Cup Stadium, Ji-sung opened the scoring after 15 minutes, marking his first international start with a goal. Substitute Oh Hyun-gyu sealed the victory in the 75th minute with his 4th goal in 6 international contests. The win came just days after a 5-0 loss to Brazil. Head coach Hong Myung-bo responded by shaking up his lineup, making 8 changes to the starting 11.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. Israel has received 4 more hostage bodies from Gaza, part of the ongoing exchange under a U.S.-brokered ceasefire with Hamas. The coffins, escorted by troops, were taken to the National Institute for Forensic Medicine for identification. Officials say families have been notified and vow the effort, quote, will not stop until every hostage is home. In Jerusalem, President Donald Trump addressed Israel's parliament, where he warned Hamas to disarm or be disarmed. Meanwhile, the Red Cross confirmed 45 Palestinian bodies were handed over in Khan Yunis, many still unidentified. Now to Madagascar, where the country's military says it has taken control of the country and dissolved key government institutions after the president fled amid weeks of protests. The announcement came minutes after lawmakers voted to impeach the president, who had gone into hiding following mass demonstrations over poverty and corruption. Cheering crowds filled the streets of the capital as soldiers declared they would lead a 2-year transition, draft a new constitution, and then hold elections. The presidency described the move as a coup d'etat and insisted that the elected government remains legitimate. Regional observers urge calm as the country faces its deepest political crisis in a decade. According to UN reports, there have been more than 20 deaths since the unrest in Madagascar began last month. In the U.S., Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has said the country's economy is on a somewhat firmer trajectory than expected, even as hiring and firing remain at historic lows. Speaking in Philadelphia on Tuesday, Powell noted policymakers will take a meeting-by-meeting approach to future rate cuts as they weigh persistent inflation against a weakening labor market. Powell said private data suggests both layoffs and hiring remain low, even with official figures delayed by the ongoing government shutdown. He added that an uptick in inflation mainly reflects tariffs rather than broader price pressures. The central bank cut rates by a 1/4 point last month and is widely expected to do so again at its next meeting in 2 weeks. R&B and soul singer D'Angelo has died from cancer aged 51, his family confirmed. Born Michael Eugene Archer in Richmond, Virginia, D'Angelo was celebrated for pioneering neo-soul, blending R&B, jazz, and hip-hop. His 3 albums, Brown Sugar, Voodoo, and Black Messiah, won 4 Grammys and reshaped modern soul music. The video for his hit entitled How Does It Feel became a defining moment of his career. Tributes from artists poured in, including Doja Cat, who praised him as a, quote, true voice of soul, and Jennifer Hudson, who said, quote, we lost a true original today. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Get ready for more wet weather as precipitation will gradually spread across most of the country starting this afternoon. Rain that started over the eastern part of Gangwon-do, Jeollanam-do, and Jeju this morning is expanding to southern regions this afternoon, and by tonight they will reach the Seoul metropolitan area. And until tomorrow, east of Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-do provinces could see up to 60 millimeters of showers. The capital area could get 10 to 40 millimeters. Meanwhile, a short burst of heavy rain about 20 millimeters per hour could pound down in southern parts of Korea. And this afternoon, daily highs will be 2 to 5 degrees higher than yesterday, getting up to 23 degrees Celsius here in the capital and Daegu. Busan will be topping out at 25 degrees. Now, the good news is that this frequent nationwide rain is finally expected to clear out by Saturday morning, bringing back brighter skies. However, be prepared for a major shift on Sunday as temperatures will take us to late autumn weather.
Now that is all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.
Layer the peak.
비행기처럼.
높이, 세계 속으로.
나누다. 하늘도.
내 꿈도.